My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody grabbing out there. Nobody.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So, 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Free at last! Free at last! Thank Almighty!
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now, 559-899-1550.
And welcome to Alan Autry, No Retreat, Omo. Alan Autry, and always humbled and honored to be with you today. It's Big Monday. As the mamas and the papas say, Monday, can't trust that day. But as I always say, you can trust us here at KXEX to bring you the best talk in town. And we'll bring it to you as we see it. Every talk show host on this station, I tell you, I'd really admire. There's some great folks on this station, top to bottom, and not always right, but we'll tell you, hey, this is what I believe. I want to hear from you. And when I say I'm collectively representing everybody on this station, again, I don't agree with everybody on everything on this station, and they certainly don't agree with me, but on the things that matter. Faith, family, freedom, and the principles that have made this country great, there is a collective unanimity upon this station, KXEX, and I want a big shout out to Guillermo Marino because it's him and his team that have made a commitment to not go corporate, not go politically correct, not go woke, and on this thing, and let talk show hosts like me, for this 1 hour of my life, tell you what I feel and speak my mind, and with no fear of getting dressed down by the boss man if you say something that even he may not agree with. It's a very unique, unusual thing you have on this little radio station. And those in Autry's Army around the country and around the world that have honored us by logging in every day from 12 to 1, I want to thank you, because I know a lot of those values I just mentioned you share with us. And dadgummit, we've got to grow this. We got to, as Crosby, Stills, and Nash said, we got to teach our children well. They've been taught a lot of bad things for a long time. We're seeing a generation now coming in and basically trying to take over and doing a good job, whether it be in academia, whether it be in the military, whether it be in the corporate world, that simply do not like America. In fact, I'd go as far as to say they hate America. And they believe it would be great, the world would be great if America and the freedoms and liberty that we stand for would just go away. Just go away. Be much better if you had communist China, North Korea, Iran, and those type of systems ruling the world. It's a very twisted ideology, a very dangerous ideology. How it got to where it is today, we have to delve into that. So we may never, if we make it out of this and bring back sanity, first to our country, then help influence that sanity to return around the world, then do so. But first of all, we've got when the Titanic hit the iceberg, you didn't have people going, well, let's do a little research on the hull of this and how it was created, the hull of this ship, and get to the root cause of why we're sinking. Shoot, no, they were heading for the lifeboats. They had to save themselves. And that's what we have to do now is battle this ideology that's coming at us left and right, which is really an anti-liberty, anti-freedom agenda. And it's, I tell you, it just makes your head spin, because I know I'm getting up there in age. A lot of folks my age and older and a little bit younger than me, but we remember a time when liberty and freedom were cherished principles that were good. They were recognized universally as good. They say, well, don't make judgments about things. Well, everybody felt pretty at peace with making the judgment that freedom and liberty was good, to let people be free to speak their minds, to go from, the outhouse to the penthouse. If you had the proclivity to work hard and play by the rules and be fair and that here in America, that was rewarded. There was a pathway. And you hear people from all ethnicities, from all backgrounds, tell their story. It's the great American story. And that story those stories would never be out there if it wasn't for the freedoms and the liberty that this country has stood for so many years. Okay, with that little spiel at the beginning, let's just do some little, I want to start with a little Autry's random thoughts. I won't stay on this long because I really don't have an answer to this question, but I want to share it with you. It's just because like I said, I never proclaimed to be the brightest chrome on the bumper, the sharpest knife in the drawer, whatever other cliche you're saying that you can come up with. I'm just an average guy, average intelligence, just an average dude. And I'm at peace with that. But I can't help that with that comes, a common sense, I think. If I see things that seem to be crazy and ask, how do we get there? Why is this happening? Or see some things that are not happening and wonder in my head logically, why is it not happening? For example, we have a drought out here on the West Coast. And well, actually all the Western states are really facing a tremendous, and it is a crisis. People throw around that word left and right. I mean, crisis is like, my goodness, people are saying I haven't had a mani and a pedi in 6 months. I have a grooming crisis I have to go take care of. I mean, it's just kind of lost its meaning. Everything's a crisis, but this water crisis and the effect of it from healthy growth of a city to just a survival of mankind to be able to move forward, it depends on water, an adequate supply of water. We've been woefully short for years, and now the Colorado River sinking out here in the San Joaquin Valley. We fight for every drop that we can get, and it's really starting to have a devastating effect. But I look at, look at Yellowstone Park. You been following that? I guess they have just some awful flooding there, just tons of water. And you look at, by some estimations, they're thinking it will cost about $1 billion to repair all the infrastructure that was destroyed by those floods. And you see the footage of it. It is just devastating. Just 3-4 feet of water just flowing all over all over Yellowstone. And then you yearly, almost without exception, you get all the floods in the south and the southeast. You have all of this snow melting up in the mountainous regions, and you wonder, you see all of this water, and you're wondering, we put somebody on the moon. We've got Elon Musk, who just, I think, hey, Jeremy, I hear you in here. Hold your thought there. Yeah, I think you got a microphone on. I'm on a very serious subject, and I'm hearing laughter in the back, which is okay. Oh man, I love Jeremy. He is absolutely the best engineer anybody could have. But where was I? Oh, water. I see all this water, and I see out here in California, you have the Sierras, the snow melting, and the water flowing out into the ocean. But all over the country, there's tons of water in certain geographical regions, more obviously than they need. My question is, why can't you run a pipeline? All right, you follow me? Run a pipeline from areas that have an abundance of water year in and year out. Run that pipeline to the states and the regions that are dry. I can't think of a better use of infrastructure funds than to build something like that. Now, I know the so-called experts because I spent 8 years in government as a mayor, and I would bring up ideas, and people would, you can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. And almost invariably, the reason, as I dug deeper and would not let go, I was kind of like the old pit bull that bites and doesn't let go on certain things that I believed in. I wanted answers. And most of the time, what the answer was not that it couldn't be done. There was not the political will to get it done. Out here, there's not the political will because you have the environmental extremists, not environmentalists. We're all environmentalists. We all want fresh, clean air. We want good, clean water. We don't, my buddy says he can't trust air he can't see. Well, I'm not one of those guys. I love clean air. But you find that common sense things like trapping the water, having a dam here, there's a thing called Temperance Dam, which has not been built yet. It's been an effort to get it built for years. There's no environmental negative impact this dam would have. In fact, it would create a very strong environmental positive in terms of a freshwater habitat for fish and all that sort of stuff. But the politics here won't allow it to be built. But you look at, the projections that are coming out from the so-called experts that if we don't get the appropriate amount of water, the minimal amount of water, especially in the western states, there's going to be devastating consequences nationwide for this country. So why can't you put a pipeline? The pipeline goes and it goes through a region that needs it. Well, if they don't need it that year, you let it keep going. If they need it, you open up the valves, take out what you need. I just know that can be done. And why isn't it being done? Why are we spending a bunch of time trying to make sure that Trump never runs again? That's the most important thing facing this country, according to Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Mitt Romney, a bunch of Democrats. Let's make sure the orange man never cometh again. I mean, the dude's 74 years old. He's inside your brain and your heart and your soul so much. Trust the American people. You've got to, you can't, if the American people want this guy again, he's going to, you got to let the American people speak. Don't be so filled with hatred and your own inflated feeling of importance and intelligence that you feel you're so above everyone else with your knowledge of what's good for America and defining what is an attack on democracy. When you say the attacks on, the riots in 2020 on federal buildings, on our law enforcement, those are government entities, folks. That is not an attack on democracy or a way of life at all. But you have, and I'm not condoning it, there should be absolute tough consequences for that protest that turned into a riot. But you equate that with some dude that walks in with some Viking horns and a diaper and a bunch of people that have been on the AARP for 10 years taking selfies and no guns confiscated. But you tell people with certainty they were going to go drag Mike Pence out and hang him. And you're going to prove that Donald Trump was forcing Mike Pence to do that. Well, that's more important than you're having entire towns out here in the western states under the threat of extinction. These farming communities, Tranquility, Lemoore, Hanford. We just got a call from Hanford. I hope the lady calls back because I'd love to take her call. I saw it up on the screen. But you have all these small towns that depend on a reliable access to at least a minimal amount of water to let them stay alive, to let them have jobs, to continue to be the hands that feed the world. And if you haven't checked lately, this food supply crisis is a real thing. And apparently President Biden is, I don't know what planet he's on in terms of just ignoring this. I expect a speech any day for him to come, I'm tired. I'm mad about all these lies about me. We don't need food. Food's overrated. We don't need food anymore. Don't eat. That's the answer. Then the prices will go down if you don't eat. It's just I don't know. I look at that and I say to myself, what are these folks thinking? There's got to be somebody with some modicum of common sense that can, if not get, nobody's going to get everybody on board. You got the political biases on both sides of the party. So the individual who comes forward, this leader, whoever he or she may be, is just going to have to be someone that appeals to the independent thinker that's in most Americans. Certainly to those that do not have a political affiliation like myself. I'm a registered independent. But there's common sense Democrats that understand what I'm saying and agree with what I'm saying. And there's common sense Republicans And I believe that makes up the majority of the folks in this country that would understand the common sense of coming together and creating a water pipeline, a lifeline, because they say that oil is the lifeblood of the country and the world. Well, it's an aspect of the economic equation that is extremely important. It takes, to ship things by truck, it takes fossil fuel right now until the transition is fully made, if it is ever made. But you got to have fossil fuel, but it is not the lifeblood of our society and our economy. Water is the lifeblood. Now, Israel figured that out quite a few years ago, because the Middle East is basically all desert. Israel's this tiny little tiny country, and they figured it out. They said, if we're going to have water to grow things, to grow food, to be able to grow industry, just to be able to survive. They, years ago, embarked on a water program that's brilliant. They now have desalination plants in Israel that takes seawater out, takes all the salt out of it, and makes it drinkable and usable for everyday Israelis. They have become so water independent that they're now selling their water to other Middle Eastern countries. That's a smart people. And I tell you, in terms of fighting politically, there's no, in fact, they just had just yesterday, Naftali Bennett stepped away. They took old Netanyahu out politically. Naftali Bennett came in, and Netanyahu said, "I'll see you in about a year." he was right. But these folks are going to go back to the ballot box, or to the polls, for the 5th time in 3 years, because they're fighting about everything. They've got 120 seats, I think, in Parliament, and there's only 61 with Bennett, and probably around that same number, a little less with Netanyahu. They disagree on settlements. They disagree on how much religion should play in the government there. They're battling these things out, but they have core common beliefs on the things that keep them alive. Number one, the military, because you have countries all around you that don't even recognize your right to exist. They put an Israeli at a particular time in their life, I think in their late teens, from what I understand, put them in an airplane and start that airplane out, and within like 3 minutes, they're in the fly zone of a country who doesn't recognize the right to exist and is dedicated to their destruction. That's an eye-opener. That makes you understand, okay, we may be arguing about all this other stuff, but let's come together on our national defense and our water. They've been able to identify key things because they have some common sense through all of that disagreement, through all of that bickering, through all that yelling at each other. People say when they go over to Israel, they say they're just at each other all the time, but they agree on the things that matter and allow them to exist. We're starting to lose that in this country. We had it at one time. But life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness was something we were all ready to defend, and if need be, defend with our lives. We won 2 world wars with that as our guiding principles. We're losing that. We're just losing common sense. And the old thing, when it gets down the line too far to the point of no return, the big old collective oops is not going to be good enough to turn things around. So anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We come back. We got Laura on the line. Always glad to hear from her. And we have a public service warning. That sounded good in there. I was talking back there and I heard you laughing. I'm going, I love it. Hey, could you give me the Howard Dean? Yeah. I just want to hear that. That just tickles me. Folks, we have one more time. I don't know why that tickles me. I had Jeremy did. He put that on a loop for me. That's Howard Dean when he won something back in the day. Some of you folks that follow politics back in the day remember that. He had some momentum. He had just won some primary. And it shows what one optic or one little misstep can just ruin a whole campaign. You know, Jeremy, are you old enough or are you familiar enough with a candidate back in the day named Michael Dukakis? Okay, he's shaking his head. No, I didn't think you would. But Michael Dukakis, you got to look it up, Google him. And Michael Dukakis had a great presidential candidate. I forget what year it was. But he was getting some traction. I mean, people, on the Republican, he was a Democrat. The Republicans were a little bit concerned about old Michael. And he decides, well, I'm perceived as weak on defense. His handlers told him, so let's take you out to a military base, put you in a tank, drive that tank around. And then people will see that you're strong on national defense. So they went out there, got in the tank, and he put the helmet on that the people that operate the tanks use. And you've seen it before, folks. You've seen people that just kind of wear a hat. Some people can wear hats and look good, and some people wear hats and they just look silly and funny. It's a phenomenon, and you don't know what the facial structures are that causes that. But some people can. I put on one of those little berets one time that the painters use. A cowboy hat will look pretty good. I mean, I've been told it looks natural on me, the cowboy hat. But I put one of these little painter's hats with a tassel over
1 minute
the side of my big moose head, and people were they were doubling over laughing. Well, that's what happened to old Michael Dukakis. He put that on, and they had pictures of him coming around, and he just looked like, I don't know, he looked like Goofy from I don't mean Goofy as the adjective, the dog Goofy with ears on that thing, and that was the end of his presidential run. Done. Oh my God, and that was before social
30
media.
seconds?
If it would have been during social media, that would have been they call it a meme. I'll have to put on one of those berets one time and do a little wear it on the air and see what people think.
Ten seconds.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now, 559-899-1550.
And welcome back to Alan Autry No Retreat. And Scoop Johnson, our indomitable correspondent out on the field who is able to get things nobody else in. CNN's trying to hire him hire him away from us. Fox, everybody wants Scoop, but Scoop remains hidden. He only works for us. He's loyal to us, and he just sent me. He got his hands on this latest Department of Homeland Security public service announcement that's going to be going out very shortly, and it's via the Department of Homeland Security, but with also jointly with the White House, Joe Biden, and Department of Justice head Merrick Garland. Okay, here, this. Oh my gosh, this is frightening. All right, I'll read it to you all. Just got it hot off the presses. Headline: Department of Homeland Security public service announcement concerning new red flag laws. Starts out here. This is Department of Homeland Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas with an urgent warning for all Americans. If you're sitting in a Waffle House and a man walks in wearing overalls, a John Deere hat, and a tattoo of Jeff Foxworthy on his bicep, watch him closely. If this man then walks over to the jukebox, puts in some coins, and plays a song by either Johnny Cash, George Strait, or Kid Rock, and if the said individual then takes a seat at the counter and flirts with the waitress while ordering coffee, ham, and eggs with hash browns, smothered and covered, and a waffle on the side, be very careful. These are red flags. Don't assume that this individual is simply a live and let live patriotic American taking a break from a hard day's work to get a bite to eat. He could very well be a white supremacist terrorist, a terrorist more dangerous than ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and more deadly than Eric Swalwell after eating a bowl of chili beans and cabbage. Also, if this person is African American, don't let his blackness fool you. He is not really black. It's a trick. He's a black face of white supremacy. If you observe any of these suspicious activities, call the Department of Homeland Security immediately. Thank you for performing your patriotic duty, and thank you for doing your part to end racial profiling in America. Well, you know, that's some frightening stuff there. So you guys, I'll probably have to read this tomorrow. We're going to do our part. Thank you, Mr. Scoop. Thank you for getting that. Thank you, Mr. Mayorkas, for this warning. I feel safer already, knowing that you're on top of things. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Laura Fisher. Laura from Florida. How you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah, so you got a water pipeline answer?
Yeah, well, actually, there has been a collective of engineers who have been, they kind of remind me of Frank Johnson. Do you know who Frank Johnson was?
Frank Johnson?
Yeah.
Frank Johnson. No, that sounds a very original name.
Okay, well, Frank Johnson was the chief of the Bureau of Roads.
Okay.
Back in from 1916 to, I believe it's 1924.
Now, why would you think I would know him from 1916 to 1924? I wasn't born until 1952. Do I look that old?
Well, I wasn't born until 1968, but I know who he is.
Well, you asked like I should have known him. I was around there. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, he is the man who designed our interstate highway system.
Okay.
And unfortunately, he spent his entire career trying to sell this interstate highway system to a variety of presidents. Franklin Delano Roosevelt kind of bought into it for his fourth term because he needed to get Pennsylvania. So he gave him a budget and let him build a test road, which was the Pennsylvania Turnpike. That was the first road in our interstate highway system.
Go Frank.
But nobody else wanted to touch it because of the cost.
Okay.
So this collective of engineers, about 18 years ago, I believe it was, came up with a plan to actually create an aqueduct pipeline system from east to west. And they have factored in every possible scenario as to what can go wrong and how many bodies would be needed to maintain it. The cost to actually implement it in its beginning phase would be the Mississippi River straight out to California. That would cost less than we've spent in Ukraine.
Holy cow. Wow, I'm loving this. Keep going. You go, girl. I'm eating this up with a spoon.
But then to maintain it would only cost about $18 million a year and less than 100 people to actually run the pipeline, because all of the treatment of the water and stuff would be done at its final destination.
Right, exactly.
However, because there isn't money to be made, no politician wants to touch it.
Now, has this issue?
That's in the short. That's the short version.
No, let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question, because I'm you really got my interest now. I think if this has already had even a semblance of a precedent, somebody else a lot smarter than me came up with this and thought it was viable. This is something, especially our representatives out in California and all the western states and in Texas, place where Arizona, where the drought is, because they're predicting it's going to get worse. This thing's going to get better.
I'll send you the report. I'll send you their entire study.
Is if it was deemed not politically advantageous, at what time was that? What era? Was it back then? Or has that even been brought up to be put on the table?
They have been continuously trying to get some politicians to sign on to this, and they're getting nowhere with it. And half of these guys work for the Army Corps of Engineers. These aren't people that are like hiding in their basement just making stuff up.
So you're
actual.
Okay, let me ask this other key question. You may or may not know. You may have to do a bit more research, but is there still an active entity, present day, June, whatever, 20th, 19?
They just put out another article in Big Think.
So, well, wow. This is something that I tell you, somebody needs to go and run with this. Because if this doesn't scream bipartisanship, if this doesn't just yell into these politicians' face, going, what could be the political downside of this, stupid? Water.
There is none, because if you have a leak, all it's going to do is leak water.
My point exactly. Try to poke a hole in this thing. I mean, here's one that should be a no-brainer. And then the specter, I mean, I mentioned, I don't know if you heard the preface before we went to break, but Laura, you see what they do in Israel. They fight like cats and dogs all the time. But things that really matter, that affect them all, they are able to stop the bickering and do something about those issues. Defense, water. I mean, it's I'm gonna move forward on this. I might have a little bit of juice left in the tank, and I've already think my mind right now is already turned on who I'm going to make the phone calls to, because I want to see somebody tell me, well, I don't really have time for that on my plate. Because
do you want me to send the whole thing to you? I mean, it's a big file, but I'll send it to you. Or
if you could, I really appreciate that. Okay, well, I appreciate it, Laura. Hey, listen, and tomorrow we're going to be talking a lot about the. We have General John Somerville coming along with Bullet Bob Leone. We're going to be talking about what's happening in Israel and the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, and the stuff. It seems like all the focus is on the Ukraine war in terms of the ramifications around the world. But there's stuff going on over right now that we as a country need to keep our eye on. So I appreciate you.
ISIS
Go ahead.
is out of control in Afghanistan right now. ISIS-K is out of control in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
They're outnumbering the Taliban. Most of it, a lot of people don't realize, a lot of these people that were in the Taliban have now left. They've just left. They're just regular citizens now. You only have the Haqqanis that are running the security and obviously the head that's in their government. But as far as anything else, it's ISIS-K, and they are terrorizing everyone.
Yeah, I like to say these guys, this ISIS-K, I draw this comparison. They're all bad. It's like the mafia. You had all of these families, Gambino family, this family, that family. They were all murderous organizations. But in Chicago, one that stands out was Al Capone's group, his reign. Even the mafia, other bosses said, this guy's brutal. Now, the brutal mafia bosses who have people murdered at the drop of a hat is saying this guy I can't take this guy. That's kind of what ISIS-K is among the terrorist mafia groups. They are brutal. They enjoy what they're doing in terms of just killing people. And they seem to be that fringe violent group, because when you pull out, the one stability that was in there, the one that could really meet their hate with enough firepower against them to hold them at bay, pulls out, then they got free reign. No wonder everybody's just running for cover, trying to keep their head on their shoulders, literally.
Well, and you have to remember that half of the Haqqani family is now running Afghanistan, and the Haqqani family is unique in that they are a terrorist organization unto themselves. They are the brutality of the Taliban. They're vicious. They are absolutely vicious. But the one thing that makes them unique among all Islamic terror organizations is they work with every other Islamic terror organization.
Mm-hmm.
They connections and will work with Al-Qaeda, with ISIS-K, with Hezbollah, with Hamas. They work with all of them. And they're the only ones that do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you, there's evil, and that's always bad when you have evil present in whatever form it takes. But when you have smart, organized evil, it is particularly dangerous and needs to be met head on. And that's what these folks are. And that's when I see this naivete that's in this government right now. When you have Merrick Garland stand up there and say that it's not Al-Qaeda, it's not ISIS, it's not ISIS-K. The biggest threat to us in terms of terrorism is white supremacy. And you're saying to yourself, look, while you're up there saying this, you know very well, or should know, that they're planning another big bang in this country, a 9/11 type attack. They will till the end of time. They're not going to leave this country alone.
Look at what comes out of our own government from studies that have been done. when you talk about white race, white supremacy, white nationalism, 1 in 2,500 people is radicalized through white nationalism. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
1 in 2,500. 1 in 5 is radicalized by Islamic terror organizations. I would say that
just simple math.
Tells us
just
who
do the math.
Threat is.
Just do the math. Exactly. It's just frightening. Just see the naivete that's there, and just the politics dripping out of his veins, hating Trump and trying to equate every Trump supporter or who voted for Trump as being one of these white supremacists, and saying they're a bigger threat, terrorism-wise, to this country than Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and as you said, this ISIS-K, which is, terrorism 2.0, man. I mean, you think they can't take it to another bloodthirsty level? What could be worse than decapitating 50 innocent people on a beach on a video and posting it? These guys will find a way. They'll top it.
You're assigning naivete to this. This isn't naivete. They know exactly what they're doing.
I didn't want to.
It could be excused because they don't know better, but they do, and that's what's disgusting.
And the woman.
These are well-educated people. They know what they're doing, and they know exactly what they're saying.
Yeah, and that, you have an administration now that just seems to be at peace with having no shame or no principles, Laura. For example, you just, not too long ago, you're just vilifying the Saudis for the horrible murder of Khashoggi. Your intelligence department comes back to Biden, tells them, hey, we have irrefutable proof that the Saudis, under the direction of the young crown prince Mohammed, ordered this killing of Khashoggi. And you get out there and you call him a bunch of names, and then because you cut off the Keystone Pipeline, you won't allow drilling on federal lands, you take the ability for America to be self-sustainable in energy. So now you have the crisis hit as surprise, it has. We don't have the solar-powered cars yet or enough electric vehicles that the average middle-class American can afford. Now you got to go to those same Saudis and suck up to them, hat in hand, saying, please, can you give us more oil? And yet we won't address that contradiction, that double-mindedness. And it's left people thinking, at least find some articulate way. Just come right out and say it. If he would walk out and say, look, these guys are evil, but we're in a crisis and we need them. So I'm going to go over there and I'm going to ask them for some oil. I hate doing it, but the world is the way it is and there's no other way. So I'm going to go over there, and they may not like what I'm saying, but business is business. They may not like me, but they may need us, America, sometime. So it's a business deal. He would get more. He would get more support if he would do it that way.
The Biden administration just went before the House of Representatives Energy Committee begging for money so that they could build oil infrastructure, fossil fuel infrastructure overseas. But we can't do that here. We can't cut any regulatory red tape so that we can eat our problems. But no, we got to take care of Europe. My head is on the verge of exploding.
Well, Laura, here's the deal. Here's what you don't understand. The oil overseas doesn't pollute. If it's drilled over and it comes out, it doesn't pollute. That's non-pollutant oil. It only starts polluting when it gets here to America. See, that's what you got to understand. It's a phenomena. It's an amazing phenomena. The scientists are trying to figure that out, and the Biden administration is working on this crazy scientific phenomena of non-polluting oil. That once it gets on, and then on the ships that are sailing over here, all the pollution, the most polluting transportation method you can devise is on ships going at snail's pace across the ocean with oil, and it's this double-mindedness and this silliness that somehow this country is ready to transition right now to all electric vehicles and all clean-burning renewable energies, which is absolutely insane. We're not ready for that now. Gradually make the transition to the degree you can to clean-burning renewables. We're all for that. But you can't do it now because you're looking at the destruction. I'm telling you, and we're going to go to break here, and I'm an eternal optimist. I tell people, I use this line all the time. I made a living in Hollywood for 30 years with this face. I got to be an eternal optimist, and I am. But this recession, I'm also a realist. And this recession is coming. We better get our ducks in order. We better get adults in places that are making these decisions to brace for this recession, or we may be in a hole that will take not only our kids, but our grandkids and their kids to be able to get out of it if we even ever do. So on that joyful note, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, Laura, thank you for calling in, dear. I hope you can call in tomorrow.
I'm going to send you that whole file that I have on the aqueduct pipeline that they've worked on. I mean, it includes the plans and everything.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
All right.
All right. God bless. Recession. Ah, man. I don't like that. I don't like the word recession.
We also have
if it's referring to my hairline or the economy. Don't like it. It means going back. It means seeds, shrinking, shrinkflation. Oh, boy. That's what happened to my ego when I became mayor. Went in there 6'4" and came out 5'4". Got the crap knocked out of me. Somebody told you. What happened to you? You were 6'4", now you're 5'4". What did you do? Get the crap knocked out of you? Ha ha ha, John. That's funny. Got some funny friends. They keep you in line, keep you humble. We got, gosh darn, we're running out of time. And can you ask Lane what she would like to talk about? Because we might have to save that until tomorrow or Wednesday. We went a little long on that. I don't know what subject it is.
We got about a minute, 5 seconds.
All righty. Love Lane. She's great. Love Lane. Hope all y'all appreciate you so much. And the reason I'm asking Lane that, we try to stay on topics. We only have so much that the time there, and I like to give people a chance to fully explain their, either ask a question or make their comment.
"30 seconds.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now, 559-899-1550.
And welcome back to Alan Autry No Retreat. You know, the old Seinfeld philosophy, method, if you will, I bring it up a lot on this show. And that method, if you've watched Seinfeld, you know of the episode I speak of. It's where Jerry said, look, I found out how to make the right decision. Whatever I think is the right decision, just I do the opposite. For example, if I'm walking and I've forgotten where I'm at and I think the store that I'm walking to is up to the corner to the right, I go up to the corner to the left. And there the store will be. If I think the Boston Celtics are going to win the NBA championship, I just I go with the Golden State Warriors to win the championship. Well, I think the Seinfeld method holds true in terms of our economy when it comes to the government response, in particular Janet Yellen, who is, if that name doesn't ring a bell, let it ring it for the first time on this show for you. She is the Treasury Secretary appointed by President Biden. And so far, Janet Yellen has been wrong on everything. If she gives advice or gives a prediction, you can just do the opposite, and you'll be fine. She's batting 1,000%. She really hasn't said anything in terms of economy in the last year and a half since she's been in the Secretary of Treasury that's been correct. For example, she said that the inflation that we were facing earlier was transitory, that all the economic experts, which she didn't name a single one, they do that a lot, you noticed? Biden does that a lot. All the top experts say, all the experts say this, all the experts say that. All the experts, and I don't know who these experts are. And I wonder if the experts aren't maybe, Biden in there playing a game of eeny, meeny, miny, mo, when he makes decisions. Those are the experts, eeny, meeny, miny, and mo. But Janet Yellen said it was going to be transitory. Well, it's obviously not transitory. And the interesting about it is the economists who spoke for themselves, not those that's Biden spoke of, but people willing to put their own reputations on the line, some heavyweight people, including Larry Summers, who I believe was Obama's Treasury Secretary, a highly respected economist by both parties. He said, we're definitely headed to this. Inflation is not transitory. It's going to continue to grow unless some changes are made. She stood by it, her prediction. And then finally, just the other day, she said, okay, I was wrong. So that might be one of the first things that she said that was right, that you wouldn't have to go the opposite on. But now Janet Yellen has come out and has said, day before yesterday, that despite all the indications to the contrary, there's not going to be a recession. And wow. I mean, you're just looking for this administration. It's getting so uncomfortable for me because I want a complete change. I hope the Republicans win the midterm. I'll come out and say it because anything's better than we got right now. You're looking for just a little bit for the national collective well-being of our mental state as a country to have this administration be right just once in a while. Just once in a while be right. From military decisions to the way things are phrased. Oh my gosh, have you seen this Karine Jean-Pierre, the information director at the White House? Bless her heart. She's a very intelligent young lady, you can tell, but she is way over her head out there. You can't trust a thing. She says she reads everything. And Janet Yellen's over here saying when everyone knows we're going to have a recession, it's just how bad is it going to be? But she didn't say that. She said there's not going to be a recession. We're already in a recession, Ms. Yellen. We're already in it. If you haven't looked at inflation, if you haven't looked at all everything becoming out of reach for the American middle class, certainly out of reach for the lower class, IRAs being devastated, retirement accounts just totally obliterated by inflation and the stock market tumbling, and you look at the true experts saying structurally, there's no way out of this right now, which prompted the Federal Reserve to come in and raise the interest rates 0.75 of a point. That's a massive increase. That means this economy is so hot, we got to put the brakes on, and it's not going to be a soft landing. They would not have done that. And they even are saying, hey, forget about it, us being able to stave off a recession. It's going to come. This is basically Jerome Powell And those board of governors on the Federal Reserve have pretty much said that. And she comes out and says we're not going to have a recession. It's just mind-boggling. And I don't have any reason for it. I don't know. And when you do things like this and you say things like this, the worst thing can happen is not have the American public disagree with you politically, whether you're in office or you're the head of a department. You know, having people or it may be a big segment of the country not agreeing with what you're saying and pushing back. The most dangerous thing and the worst thing can happen is when people just stop listening to you. You get no reaction from them at all. That you become so incompetent that you become irrelevant. They just move you over. You become the side dish that wasn't ordered. You just get sent back to the kitchen. And that's what's happened with too many people in this administration. It's happened to Kamala Harris. She was appointed the border czar, never been to the border. Went one time, a token visit, but didn't go down to the border where all the nitty-gritty things are happening. And here's our border czar going to Guatemala looking for the root causes of migration. You've had this terrible military, these decisions, moving out of Afghanistan, the surrender. You have Janet Yellen saying there's, inflation's transitory and there's no recession coming. And then it's worked its way tragically all the way up to our president, where people are just not listening to them. They're looking to the next election. They're saying, and it's sad. It's really sad because America needs a good, solid debate. It needs a good, loyal opposition, stimulating debate, because out of that stimulating, very intelligent and debate driven for by what's best for the country by both parties, good stuff has happened in this country more often than not. And we're just seeing a total disregard and a dismissal of this administration, and it's sad. And you're left with one phrase, and it's not political. To me, it's not. It's just a common sense conclusion that most Americans have come to, and that is this administration's got to go. You say, well, you don't know what you're going to go get. You don't know what you're going to get next. That's right, Autry, but we know what we got now, and we know what it's doing to the country, and it's got to go. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Here's Roy and Dale sing Love This Song. Always feel better when this song comes on. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We're going to have General John Somerville on. Very, very smart guy talking about the things happening in Israel and the Middle East. God bless you. God bless America. And always remember, just do your best and let God do the rest. That's all he expects of you. So that's all you should expect from yourself. See you tomorrow on Taco Tuesday.